Welcome to Marketing Romance. I am so excited to introduce Stephanie Moon. Stephanie is a seasoned book marketing and publicity expert with over 15 years experience. She boasts an impressive track record of working for and with renowned publishers such as Chronicle Books, HarperCollins, Scholastic, and Hardy Grant. Her expertise extends to partnering with authors to spearhead successful marketing campaigns that have catapulted books to New York Times bestseller status. In addition, Stephanie's remarkable book marketing skills have consistently secured coverage for dozens of books in large media outlets with millions of readers and viewers, such as Oprah's esteemed holiday favorite things list. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Stephanie. This is kind of an informal group where, we talk about marketing. But since you are the expert, why don't you share a few things with us and then we can open things up for questions. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah. What do you want me to share about? There's so much to share about in marketing.
Okay, well then why don't we ask a few people, what do you want to hear about with marketing? Do you want to hear about somebody say what they want to hear about? Okay, nobody's talking. Well, let's see. Why don't we start with ways to get our names out there in front of people? So, I think, everybody has, okay, we have somebody saying how to grow social media.
Okay.
I lost
Okay.
that.
I can see it. How to grow social media when you don't do it. I guess that's
That's a hard one.
I mean, I guess it's hard to do social media if you're not on it. Like, I think that so like to kind of like back up, like, your platform is how people are going to find you, right? That's how people who already follow you and like you, like keep up with what you're doing, and it's how new people find you. So your platform does not need to be social media. It's just that that's probably one of the like easiest, cheapest ways to do it. So sometimes people have a newsletter, sometimes people do tons of speaking, sometimes people are part of tons of writing groups, sometimes people are parts of, like different nonprofits or whatever, or organizations. So those can also be your platform, but I would say, how you build your platform, it needs to be in a way that you can kind of like consistently show up. That's the like main part, right? Because you can't build a platform if you're not active on it, basically. So I think if you have like kind of more questions to follow up, Stephanie, we can kind of like talk about that. But then I'll just talk about that next question. When do you start marketing your book? And so that also is like, if you're in this group, like part of Paula's group, you should be probably marketing your book like right now, right? And so there's marketing, I think. Also, to like back it up, marketing is not just holding up your book and saying like, this is my new book, please buy it, right? Marketing is also like knowing who your audience is, knowing where they are, knowing what they want, knowing like the value they're going to get from your book. And then also, of course, then selling and promoting your book, right? And so those like precursor pieces, those parts of like knowing like who your book is for and what they're going to get from it, those are like huge parts of marketing that are part of your book marketing, but that are not necessarily even book specific. They're not holding up your book, and that's like a really important part of the piece, because marketing is, telling people about your book, but if you don't have anyone to tell, it just doesn't work.
Okay, and I'd like to back up just a moment, if we could, Stephanie. You had mentioned not only knowing who your market is, but what they're going to get out of your book. And I know that it took me a long time to realize that in writing romance, we're not just entertaining. We romance novels usually have some type of a message, whether we realize it or not when we write it. If we're writing about trust issues, we're teaching our readers our views on trust and how important that is to a relationship. If we're, if we have a scenario of fidelity in the book, we're teaching our readers about fidelity. So, you know, a lot of people might think, well, I don't, I don't know what my readers are going to get out of my book. They're going to get more than just entertainment. We
Mhm.
do teach through our writing also. So thank you very much for bringing that point up, because I think sometimes as romance authors, we don't stop and think about the deeper issues of our books.
Mhm.
But very definitely, I suppose that's why different people have favored tropes, the secret baby trope, or the, whatever trope it is. I think it's because those are the stories that have the message that resonates with them. So, as we're writing our books, I think we do need to think a little bit about what is resonating, what resonates with us that will resonate with our readers. And that, I think, is part of how we can find our readers. So, platforms, we talked about that.
Mhm.
Um, then there's let's talk about building a list, because my personal opinion is that a list should be the very, very first thing authors should be doing. I don't know if you agree with that, Stephanie, but that's my opinion.
I think it's smart for it to be the first thing, but I think it's hard for it to be the first thing because I think doing an email list, like, um, tech wise is a little bit harder than like posting on social. But I do think, right, like the difference between having a following on social and then also an email list is that on social, your account could be hacked. The algorithm could like hide you. Your account could be shut down, right? All of these things happen frequently, right? For people. And then all that time you spent building that audience, like you no longer can talk to them anymore, right? Whereas the email lists are names that you own and you can email them as much as you want. At any time you want, right? And your email will go right into their inbox, right? Whether that person decides to open it or not is like another thing, but like you are for sure getting into their inbox, which is already like one hurdle. So yeah, those two things. And then I actually see like the follow-up from Stephanie about like if this is your first time on social or like you're not really on social so you're trying to figure out how to do it, I think that the best thing to do is like just start doing it. There's so much being on social, there's a lot of things to kind of like learn. There's like the tech of the app. There's like figuring out what you're going to say. There's the visual component. If you're on something like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, there is like a graphic component, right? And so, I think if you're new to it, you're never going to feel like ready, right? Being ready isn't having like 30 posts for the whole month done, like, and scheduled. It's more like getting to know your audience, right? Like I kind of talked about before. Social is where your audience theoretically is. So it's like getting to know them. What do they respond to? And that just takes practice on your end, to like get used to actually posting. And then that takes time for your audience to get used to seeing you.
Let me interject just a little bit here, Stephanie, because, I think sometimes for us who have been there for a long time,
Mhm.
we forget about the person who is just starting out.
Yeah.
So, just starting out, my first piece of advice, and I think you will agree, Stephanie, is don't get overwhelmed and say, oh my gosh, there's all these places that I need to be. You need to start with one place. And how do you determine what that one place will be? It should be um, something that you like. So, some people like Facebook, some people like Instagram, some people like TikTok. So, what do you like? So, if you can research online, can Google, if I want to have a presence on TikTok, what kind of post do I need to make? Well, most people realize that that's video. So if you don't like to be on video, you probably don't want to be on TikTok. You can talk about that a little bit more, Stephanie, than
Yeah.
me.
I completely agree. It's like that question I get, like, which platform should I be on? It really depends. It depends on you, and it depends on your comfort level, because the platform you're going to have the most success on is the one where you feel most comfortable showing up. And so, just like Paula was saying, if you don't want to make short form video, like TikTok is going to be very hard for you because that's all it is, right? So you want to be in a place where you like or can tolerate and then eventually like spending time, and then also where you you can like enjoy part of that creation process, right? Because also so much of marketing is a process. It's not like, even if you started marketing today, your like growth is not like linear. It's more like, it's like up and down, up and down. And yeah, you just have to enjoy the place that you're going to build your platform on. And I will also say sometimes it does take some exploring, like maybe you thought you would like to do short form video, but it really does not work for you. So you move to a different platform. I think that's fine too.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good idea once you start feeling comfortable with that platform, whichever one you choose, and maybe from the very beginning, before you're even comfortable with it, think about how can you entice people off of that platform onto your email list so that they are yours and not, you own them instead of just renting them. And a real quick word, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, Stephanie, but another really quick word is, if you have one person on your email list, make it a practice to be in touch with them on a regular basis. You will grow.
I love that you say that, Paul, because it's like social media apps they make money the longer you spend on it, right? So they want you, they will reward you as the user for creating content that other users like spend a long time looking at, right? So if you do any research about like Instagram, like people will say right now, use carousel posts, because then people need to like swipe through each photo and look at it or read the caption, and that's spending like a long time on the app, right? So the algorithm will reward you by showing your post to either more of your followers or more new people, right? But you as an author, like, yes, you do like the platform like the social media platform you've chosen, but you also want to get them onto your email list. You want to get them to your website. You want to get them listening to your podcast, because you just don't own those names on social media. And as I'm sure you've also heard lots of people complaining, like, algorithms are changing all the time, Facebook algorithm, Instagram algorithm, right? And you can't control the algorithm, basically. So, but you can control your own email box, your own email, like send schedule, basically.
Yeah, how often you're sending out to them.
Yeah.
And what kind of things do you think people are drawn to when we post on social media or send our emails out?
So I think people really are very curious about authors. They want to know more about you. So, like, as an author, okay, so you're writing romance, and there's so many different genres, but there's also tons of people writing into your genre as well. So what makes you different than another author is you. It's you, which is your brand, right? So it's the things that you like, it's your life, it's your past experiences, it's your views, right, on these different values or different scenarios, right? That's what differentiates you from this other person that's writing into the same genre. And readers want to what like makes readers loyal is that they connect with you, right? So like on my Instagram, right, like I love gardening and I have these dahlias, and people are like, when I post pictures of them, right, which has nothing to do with like book marketing strategy, people are like, oh my gosh, I love this, like I'm trying to grow this, I can't grow it, like they talk, I talk to them about like gardening, and it's like unrelated, but it kind of it resonates with them, right? And then that's also how they remember me. That's also how I stay top of mind, because then maybe the next time that person who is an author sees a dahlia bush on a walk, they're like, oh yeah, I forgot. I really need to contact Stephanie because she's going to help me with my marketing plan, or I want her help, right? So it's in some ways very tangential, but you want them to like have something besides just being an author that they can resonate with you, because there's many authors out there.
Okay. And this is an open discussion, so a person can unmute themselves. They can put their questions into the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you unmute yourself and talk, you will be on camera. And so you have to be comfortable with that, because I will be posting this on YouTube. So, so let's talk about some other means of marketing. I think we're all interested in what are some of those organic methods of marketing, which is a longer route than ads, but less expensive too. So what are some other means of marketing?
So I mean, a lot is about brand building and community building and relationship building, right? I think especially for romance writers, I think that romance writers have such kind of like a strong community within themselves that a lot of times partnering with different authors to promote each other, right? To do a newsletter swap, to share, you know, first chapters or extra stories or, you know, other materials like with other authors. I think that that works really well. But I think you can also do marketing in like many different ways. It depends kind of like where you are, what you're interested in, what your network is like, what your goals are. Um,
Okay, so I'm going to take this thing that you had said about swaps. I think swaps are wonderful. I like
yeah.
swaps. And I have swapped with people in the past where they like to do the swaps, and you know, they give me a link to their book either as a discount or a full price or a free, whichever it is.
Mhm.
And then I ask them, don't you want to build your email list? Don't you want to capture these names and email addresses? And sometimes I get kind of a, well, why would I do that? Okay, well,
I,
so,
I think, I think I think, Paula, you are especially good at building your list. I think for many authors, it can feel very overwhelming to have an email list, because I think the question also does come up. What do I write in my email newsletter, right? Which you did ask before. So it's more like, you know, every newsletter should not be a sale or a promotion of your book. It shouldn't be like, here's book 1 on sale. Then next week, here's book 2 on sale. It's about nurturing that, relationship with your audience. And I think this also might be helpful. So marketing, when you think of marketing, you have to think about it as like a journey or like a funnel. So at the top, like at the top of the funnel is your visibility. And that's where the most people can see you. So maybe if you're speaking at a romance con, book con, you're on a podcast, etc. So that's the top. That's where the most people see you. The next level would be people like following you on social media. So it's like if somebody heard you on a podcast, then, you know, a small percentage of those people might follow you on social media. That's this middle level. Then after that, further down this little funnel is email. So, you know, I would say in general, people's email list is smaller than their social following. And then after the email is at the bottom of the funnel, right here is when people buy your book, because people who are on your email list are more likely to buy your book. And of course, there's going to be people who find you in other ways that buy your book. But what you can control is that marketing funnel. And so it's even a smaller percentage of people who are on your email list who will buy your book. And so that's kind of like a way to think about marketing, that you have to be kind of like doing things for each part of that funnel, right? So like be on a podcast, have an email list, be on social, and then actually make it easy for people to buy your book.
no, that's great. So I think a lot of us have our books on websites with links to buy those books.
Mhm.
And I think that's wonderful. If we don't have a lead magnet of some type, which would be, my favorite is like a 10,000 word short story that is maybe from a side character from one of your novels. I like doing like the parents of, you know, the parents of my protagonist, the parents of my love interest, and how they met. I like to do short stories like that as lead magnets, because it gives a sense of how I write, and then
Mhm.
also it's an easy lead in to the books themselves.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know how to gather those email addresses to get on your list when you're doing like a author swap or something. You build a little landing page. Most email servers have the capability to build a simple landing page where you're asking for the email address and usually a name to go with that before they can download whatever it is you're giving away to them, or whatever. So talk
Well,
to us. Oh, excuse me, go ahead.
And I think going back to that example of when you said that you did newsletter swaps, I think also just to realize like having somebody on your email list is they're more likely going to be like a repeat customer, right? You would rather have somebody be on your list and maybe not buy your book right away, but buy it later and then become a true fan and then continue to buy all your books, forevermore, basically. And that's what you do on your email list. You allow them to like get to know you. You tell them like what you like, tell them about your inspiration, share about like how you got ideas for how to write this specific story, different research you've done, etc. That's like the type of content that you can share on social and in email.
And everybody likes pictures of my doggy.
Dogs and babies.
Yeah. So, okay. Do we have some more questions? We have a little bit of time yet. We still have about 20, 25 minutes. So we're here to answer everybody's questions about marketing.
Oh, I see the question about marketing on Vella. Have you marketed on Vella before? Hi there, John. I think
No,
Vella is.
this is brand new for me, is going on to Vella is. And I decided to go ahead. I'd been working on a romantasy that had just kind of gotten stuck in my head, although that's not my main subgenre. And I decided to go ahead and go the route of Vella with it because it's shorter chapters anyway, so it's perfect for the episodic framework that they have for Vella. But I have no idea how to approach marketing for Vella.
I think Vella is. I think Amazon promotes it a lot, but I think as an author, you have to see just like, are you making that much money when people read you on Vella? So I've like worked with other authors who said like, if they had serialized their novel and somebody read the whole thing on Vella, they're still getting less money than if a person bought their book on sale. So I think that's kind of like one thing to consider. But I think kind of like in the head notes or like the bottom author notes, those are kind of like places to market. You can use the, story as like a lead into like a book. I think Vella is very much run on their algorithm prefers people who have a lot of reads and it's kind of like building that momentum to get a lot of reads. So I also think it's like telling your audience like, hey, I'm on Vella. And I think it's telling them more than once, right? Because there's also this statistic that it used to take 7 times for a person to 7 like touch points with a brand before a person would do something, recognize it and take action, right? But now that number has moved to 17. And that's because like the advent of social media, the advent of the digital age, we're just basically like bombarded with information that, our brains have kind of just like tuned a lot of stuff out. They just know like, oh, I can't focus on this, like pass, right? So why I'm saying that is so then you have to promote more. Because even if you feel like you're promoting a lot, it's still probably not enough. Because not everybody is seeing your posts on social. Not everybody is opening every single email. And also just people's attention spans and memories are low. So you just got to like remind them and then get them at that right point. So for you, it'd be like, oh, seeing in a newsletter, you saying like, oh, I'm on part 8 of my Vella series. You can read the next one tomorrow when I release it or whatever. It's just always kind of keeping it front of mind.
Well, and not to dominate the conversation, but real quickly, does this also get into a question of which social media? Because My main social media platform tends to be Facebook.
Okay.
But I know that is also generally an older audience.
Mhm.
My understanding is that Vela is generally a younger audience. So I'm wondering if that will make a difference.
I don't know if Vela is really a younger audience. I feel like it just depends on the author. So I've
Okay.
seen, like different authors have success, there. Um, yeah. And I think
Okay.
Facebook is great.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Is that the kind of thing that he can just Google for demographics on some of these social platforms?
You can definitely find, I would say you can find out statistics, but it's also like know your audience, right? Like who's either part of your group or in your community. So you can kind of see who on, following you. So you'll also say that Facebook is actually relatively effective for selling books. Like I know people, you're not the first person who said like, oh, Facebook is, like an older group, but also older people have more money than somebody who graduated right from college, or who is a teenager, So it's also thinking about who has that income to spend on a book.
We
Well,
have
and
another.
hopefully I'm not using a bad word here. Hopefully I'm not using a bad word here, but I got some real interesting feedback on AI as far as reader avatars for Vela Paranormal Fantasy. So it'll be interesting to see how accurate the information I got back on that was. But I just asked AI. I said, can you build me a typical reader avatar for this type of book on this platform? So we'll see.
I think that's an
Yeah.
excellent idea, John.
Yeah.
I don't think authors use AI enough. They, a lot of authors think, oh, AI is some machine writing my book, but it has nothing to do with writing necessarily. It has to do with market research. It has to do with getting ideas for your blurbs and things of that nature. We have a question. Any advice around using paid marketing through social media?
Do you mean more like paid ads or paid influencers?
Well, I think that could go either way.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm just curious to know. I've just seen varying things through Facebook and I'm on Instagram, but I'm just curious around people using it to boost posts or to try and use it as a way to, just market your book, basically.
I think ads are very, very different. Ads now are very, very different than like 5 to 7 years ago. I think like, during that time, it was easy to spend a little bit of money and get a lot of likes, a lot of followers, a lot of email subscribers. The landscape has really changed. And so I actually recently talked to some ad agencies. So agencies that run ads on Amazon and then also do meta ads. And they basically are like, ads are good if you have an organic funnel that's working, because ads now can only fuel a fire. They can't start it. So basically, if you have a book that is picking up momentum or has a lot of momentum, placing ad dollars behind it is helpful because it'll keep it going, right? It'll be like, oh, it will probably be that last push for somebody to be like, oh, I saw Leanna's book 3 other times or 5 other times somewhere else, and like, oh, I see it when I'm on Amazon buying dish soap. Let me just get it, right? But it can't. I think in that way it's effective, but I don't think it can be like, oh, and a reader who's never heard of you, doesn't read your genre, doesn't even read romance. They're not going to click on your ad, and so I've also unfortunately worked with some people who prior to me had worked with people who worked with agencies who spent thousands of their dollars on ads, and I'm like, it doesn't always make sense, basically. So it's a little bit a case by case basis, but I would definitely say think about ads as fueling a fire, not starting one.
Can you talk to us about BookFunnel? Are you able to? I don't know if that's one of the avenues that you recommend.
BookFunnel?
BookFunnel or Story Origin? They are obviously not. So BookFunnel and Story Origin are a place where, or places where authors can go to do group swaps or group giveaways, or they can even do solo giveaways or things of that nature. You know, John, you asked this question. I interviewed Sophia Aves in my first or second summit, and she has made thousands and thousands of dollars off of BookFunnel. I don't know if you caught that interview or not, but she grew her reader list to over 25,000 using BookFunnel. So, but I believe that she was pretty much, she was saying that because you only get a thumbnail of your cover, that it has to be spot on for your genre, that your blurb has to be very succinct. When you're going in with a group of 20 other authors, you have to stand out. But there are other ways too. So I would definitely recommend that you take a good look at BookFunnel and Story Origin to see how you might be able to utilize them. So Stephanie, how do you get people into the media? How do you get people into the media?
Okay, so podcasts I think are great for book sales as well, because podcasts have like a long tail, right? And your podcast host, the podcast host is always promoting, because they want the downloads and listens on their podcast. And it's really about just doing research and pitching them. And also your pitch is not that you have a new book. Like that's not the pitch, because a podcast host doesn't care that you have a new book. They want to know why their audience wants it, why their audience wants to like hear from you, right? And that goes back to kind of like your brand. And so it's, publicity and media is a lot of research and then knowing what the market is like. So, it's listening to different podcasts and seeing like, do these resonate with me, and how can I fit in there? How can I fit in with their readers, right? Because again, it's not a one-time, one shoe does not fit all here. Yeah.
Okay. So we need to actually kind of know what the podcast host is looking for. We don't want to just say to everybody, hey, come interview me.
Right.
And then we want to know what to say on those interviews. I was talking to Jill Lublin not too long ago, and she was saying that once a quarter, we should have some type of an announcement in our local paper or local radio station, just to keep ourselves front of mind to whoever those listeners or readers are. So that's something else to think about.
I do think, also like local media is always looking for content, right? So like the anatomy of a great pitch is basically like thinking about and including in your pitch why this editor or producer needs you on their show, and making their job easier, because the easier you make their job, the more likely they're going to say yes to you, right? So it's having story ideas, having topics you can talk about, all of these different things that make their job easier, because they're trying to produce more content than ever before, but they have less resources than ever before.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that pitch. I mean, and I think, John, that's like a really, for like podcasts, that's probably really interesting, because you could just say like, oh, what is it like to write romance as a 74-year-old male? Are you, that's a very different perspective, right, than what they're probably normally getting pitched.
Right. Absolutely. There's not a lot of men who write romance,
right?
Although I think is a little, and I'm going to talk about that because I have my oldest brother. He likes to write a crime thriller. And when I got into writing romance, he decided, oh, maybe that's what I should do because it's such a huge market. And so, he wrote a chapter and sent it to me. What do you think of this? It's like, that's horrible. Nobody would read it. And it's because he, crime thriller is a lot different from romance. Romance is all about relationships. And so we need to have some character development. We can't just slap a character on there and give them a crisis and have them run crying, no, my life's horrible, And that's kind of like what his writing was about. I commend you, John. I'm sure that you don't write anything like that. But I think it's more of a challenge for men, especially men who have been brought up in the era of we don't show our emotions, we have that stiff upper lip and all that kind of stuff, because romance is so relationship oriented. So I commend you. That's wonderful. Any other questions that we have out there? We have a few minutes. I've been thinking about my pitch to a podcast. So as many people here know, I used to shoot black powder guns and throw knives and tomahawks, and I have a few awards for that. So maybe that would be something very interesting to get me in the door.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And I liked writing about that era too. So, okay. All right, we have a few minutes, but if nobody else has any questions, we're going to wrap things up. Stephanie, I think that you had a free download for our viewers today, didn't you?
I did, or I do, and I didn't set up the landing page, but I'm happy to, anybody who emails me, I'll send it to you. I just had like a lot of appointments. And the lead magnet is content prompts for romance writers. So things you can talk about on social and things you can write about on your email list. So if you just email me and let me know you were here, I'll send it to you. I have not gotten to setting up the landing page yet and the automation.
Okay. And anybody who doesn't know how to download or copy Stephanie's email address, if you hover over there, you'll see a little like dialogue bubble, and then you'll see a happy face, and then you see 3 little dots. So you click on that 3 little dots and it will ask you to copy, and you can click copy and it will automatically copy, and then you can put it over to your Word doc or wherever you want to.
Yeah.
And email Stephanie. I think I'm going to have to email you, Stephanie.
Yeah. I'm excited to share it with you because I know it can just be intimidating when you're thinking about like things to write, right? Like staring at a blank page of like, what do I write on social media? What do I write in an email newsletter, right? So this helps kind of alleviate that.
Right. And when you get that landing page built, because I don't want to inundate you with millions of emails, but when you get that landing page built, send it to me so I can put it under my YouTube link, and that way people can access that, and then send that well, I'll be able to figure out what the name of the freebie is. So okay. And anybody else have anything to say or any questions to ask? Because if not, we're going to wrap things up. Going once, going twice. Thank you, Stephanie. I really appreciate you being here. Okay. All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.